A few months ago, I highlighted some Pokemon with amazing origin stories, and it was one of the more fun videos I've done in a while. So today, I thought I would do it again and look at 10 more Pokemon who have an extra special story behind the way they came to be the way they are today. This is some fascinating stuff, so let's jump in. First things first, we might as well start with my #1 boy, Cyndaquil. If you've been watching my videos for any amount of time, you would probably know that Cyndaquil is my favorite Pokemon, and a big reason for that is because Cyndaquil is a starter Pokemon, which really gave me a good chance to use him and grow to love him. However, it was recently discovered that Cyndaquil wasn't even intended as a starter Pokemon originally. In the most recent leak of Pokemon Gold and Silver that occurred earlier this year, a beta design of Cyndaquil was discovered amongst all the other details, and not only does it not appear to be a fire type at this stage, but Honoguma, the original Johto fire starter, was still present at this time too, showing that it was also not even a starter Pokemon at this point either. It's fascinating to think that such an iconic and cool starter Pokemon like Cyndaquil wasn't that at all originally, yet it was repurposed to fit this role so well. As a Cyndaquil fan, this just makes him all the more cool in my opinion. Another Johto Pokemon with a cool origin story is Hutu. In the July 2000 issue of Nintendo Power, Ken Sugimori stated in an interview that Hutu is his favorite Pokemon. One of the most iconic features of Hutu is its one leg, or at least the one leg that it stands on. Very rarely you will see that Hutu actually has two legs, but most of the time it only ever stands on one. Well, this was actually inspired by a pet bird that Sugimori had as a child. As he puts it, Sugimori had a pet bird during his childhood that stood on one leg, and it fascinated him so much as a kid that it became a significant memory for him. Significant enough, in fact, for him to call upon it and base a Pokemon off that experience, meaning that Hutu has a lot more meaning to it than most people might see on the surface. One of the most fascinating ways that a Pokemon has ever became a Pokemon most likely occurred with Drifloon. Drifloon is one of the most popular and coolest Sinnoh Pokemon out there, and one of the coolest ghost types, period. But what if I told you that it actually originated from Jigglypuff? That's right, of all places, the concept of Drifloon most likely originated from Jigglypuff's design, because as stated in the recently released Satoshi Tajiri manga, during the development of Pokemon Red and Green, Pokemon who were selected to be in the game were selected with a poll that was conducted within the staff of Game Freak, and Jigglypuff was one of those Pokemon that was selected this way. Except it was up for inclusion in the games against another Pokemon known as Barunda. Barunda is a more literal interpretation of Jigglypuff's balloon Pokemon concept, and Jigglypuff ultimately won out in that department, but its design, as you can see, is very similar to Drifloon, and was most likely held onto after it was cut from Gen 1 until it was revisited and revised into Drifloon for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, which is pretty dang fascinating and incredible if you ask me. One Pokemon whose origin I've touched on in a past video is Aerodactyl. However, thanks to some additional research, I would like to add on to Aerodactyl's origin story a little bit today. If you take a look at this Pokemon, it becomes apparent that it's somewhat of a reference to Jurassic Park, since it's a fossil Pokemon that is revived from the Old Amber, which is the same way that the dinosaurs are revived in Jurassic Park. On the surface, this seems like just a cool Easter egg, but I actually believe that Aerodactyl was intended and owes its entire existence to Jurassic Park itself. This is because not only does it have a connection with the Old Amber that I just mentioned, but the first Jurassic Park film released in 1993, which is literally smack dab in the middle of Pokemon Red and Green's development, which occurred from 1990 to 1996. Interestingly, Aerodactyl is also very much a black sheep in the fossil Pokemon community, because it is the only one from every generation that features fossil Pokemon that isn't a part of some kind kind of pair or set, which most likely means that Game Freak were developing Red and Green version, then Jurassic Park came out in 1993 and was a monumental movie at the time, by the way, and they all kind of just sat there and thought, we need to make a Pokemon based on that, which resulted in Aerodactyl coming into existence, and coming into existence in its more unique way as far as fossils go, because it was literally just shoved into the dex because Game Freak were that fascinated by the movie that they had to have something based on it. Some of that is just a theory, but I personally feel like it is pretty definitive based on the evidence, and it's a pretty cool way for a Pokemon to come about. Alolan Raichu and its inspirations have also been well documented, being based on the classic Surfing Pikachu from Pokemon Yellow, as well as the Surfing Pikachu Puka from the anime. However, there is another likely point of origin for this Pokemon that no one has ever really talked about, that makes Alolan Raichu monumentally more cool. Probably the most peculiar thing about this Pokemon is its obsession with pancakes. According to the Pokédex, this Pokemon loves pancakes, and it's believed that a secret Alolan recipe ultimately gave this Pokemon its new form. That trait seems completely out of left field, but it's possible that it might go back to the very origin of this Pokemon itself, or rather, its pre-evolution Pikachus. It's been stated by Pikachu's designer Atsuko Nishida that Pikachu was originally based on a Daifuku, which is a Japanese pastry-like sweet. It's certainly not the same thing as a pancake, but it almost seems as if this love of a sweet, doughy food is an homage to the days of over 2 decades ago when Pikachu was based on a similar sweet confection when it first crept into existence, far before it was even close to the way we know it today. If true, this is an amazing tip of the cap to where this family of Pokemon came from and the history of the franchise itself. A more recent Pokemon that probably has the most unique and pandemonium-inducing debut of all time is Meltan. You might remember a couple years ago when Meltan was discovered by data miners in the code of Pokemon Go, and then it began appearing in the game itself disguised as Ditto, although with no name or other info attached to it. If you were around for when this happened, you'll remember that the community was in a complete frenzy for those couple of days, and it was truly one of the coolest Pokemon moments in recent memory. According to Game Freak and Niantic, releasing Meltan in this way was actually all intentional, and from the very beginning of Pokemon Go's development, the idea of debuting a Pokemon in the game was already being thought of, and as time went on, and the plan was also made to incorporate it with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, it was also designed specifically to appear like a Gen 1 Pokemon as well. While we don't know a lot about its creation process, however, like some of these other entries, the way that Meltan came into the public eye is truly one of the coolest things we have seen from Pokemon in a long time, and I certainly would love to see more of it in the future. At the beginning of the video, we talked about how Cyndaquil wasn't a starter Pokemon originally and was converted into one. Well, ironically, the reverse actually happened with the starter Pokemon it replaced, Honoguma, and it was converted into a non-starter Pokemon, with that Pokemon being Teddiursa. These two are completely different in terms of their own designs, but the evidence that they were once one and the same lies in the various Gold and Silver beta demos that have recently become available. Other than both being bears, it's very obvious that one of Teddiursa's beta sprites is an edited version of Honoguma's sprite, having the same exact body and pose and simply missing Honoguma's fiery features. So at some point, likely after it was decided to make Cyndaquil the fire starter for Johto instead, Honoguma was then converted into the normal type Teddiursa, probably because they still liked the idea of the Pokemon even though it had been replaced in its former role. And the fact that Teddiursa and Honoguma were once one and the same even though they look so vastly different is truly an awesome glimpse into the Pokemon design process. Yet another Johto Pokemon that went through a wild development process and ended up nothing like it was originally supposed to be is Celebi. In the most recent Gold and Silver beta leak, 2 different beta stages of Celebi were revealed, both being heavily inspired by Native American culture, which doesn't appear in Celebi's final design at all. The sprite of the first beta stage is essentially just the Kokopelli, which is a Native American fertility deity. Its second beta stage looks much more like a Pokemon and significantly more like Celebi, although it does still have the Kokopelli inspiration. It's also very interesting that at this stage, Celebi was a normal type instead of Grass Psychic, showing that it did a complete 180 in terms of both its design and its inspirations as well, and it makes for an unbelievably cool bit of Pokemon history. Another legendary with a really cool origin story is Lugia. Lugia did not come about like your average Pokemon because it wasn't made with the games in mind at all. In fact, it wasn't even planned to be in the games initially because it was created for the anime and solely for the anime at the time of its creation. Lugia wasn't created by Ken Sugimori or any of the other typical Pokemon designers. It was instead created by Takeshi Shudo, the original head writer of the anime, and he created it specifically for the second movie, The Power of One, in order to facilitate its story. Obviously, Game Freak ended up liking Lugia so much that they made it the box art Pokemon for Silver version, but Takeshi Shudo himself said that even he was surprised that Lugia made it into the games. You usually assume that since Pokemon is a video game series primarily, that is where all the Pokemon come from, so knowing that Lugia came from a completely different place and wasn't even planned for the games at first is pretty dang cool and is yet another really cool story from Pokemon's earlier days. This next one is courtesy of Lockstin, and he actually made a whole video about it that I would recommend checking out, but with that said, it concerns Staryu and Starmie. As Gen 1 Pokemon, they are obviously some of the originals, but Staryu and Starmie, as Lockstin mentions in his video, likely call back to one of the very inspirations of Pokemon itself, a thing that likely inspired the very concept of catching Pokemon and using them in battle. As Lockstin puts it, the catching of Pokemon in Pokeballs and unleashing them into battle is pretty similar to a concept used in the show Ultraman, where basically the same thing happens. Ultraman is a very long-running show that likely would have embedded itself into the minds of many Japanese kids of the time, including Satoshi Tajiri and the rest of the founding members of Game Freak. Ultraman and other similar shows also featured kaiju that are very reminiscent of Staryu and Starmie, that being starfish with an eye in the middle of their bodies. So all in all, what seems like just a pair of starfish Pokemon on the surface actually have really deep connections to the very founding of the franchise itself, and can in a lot of ways be seen as a symbol of the franchise's origin point. I'll leave a link below as well to Lockstin's video where he explains this in more detail if you would like to check it out, and I definitely recommend it as it is a very good video. Well, there you have it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you want to support more videos like this, consider checking out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify and my Pokemon Cardinal series as well, which is super appreciated. I'll be back with another video very soon, and until then, as always, I love you guys, and I will smell you guys later.